Hi everybody, this is going to be the second review of 3 that I'm doing for Corsets-UK. Like I mentioned in last week's video, they had sent me 3 samples of some newer designs that they had made, and they wanted to see how I liked the new designs and the new materials that they were made out of. So this week I'm going to be reviewing the Instant Shape Overbust, and it has the flower trim and the quilted hip detail here. Today I'm wearing the Ivory one. I believe there's another one available in pink that's a bit closer matching to the flowers, but I preferred the color of the Ivory one instead. So here is the front, side, the back, and the other side. For the length and fit of this corset, the center front here is 14 inches. Along the peak of the bust here down to the lap at the princess seam is about 15.5 inches. The side seam here is 13 inches, so it's a little bit longer than the corset that I had reviewed last week. And then in the center back here is 14 inches again. In terms of the circumferential measurements, this one is a couple inches less curvy compared to the waist taming overbust I reviewed last week. So it is 34 inches around the bust line, 28 inches at the rib cage here, 26 in the waist, and 34 inches in the hips. Now it fits my hips okay because I have relatively narrow hips, but because my bust is a couple inches bigger than this corset, it is feeling a little bit squishy. I do have a bit of spillover, so if I wanted to get rid of that spillover, I would have it open probably another inch or 2 in the back, or perhaps have a V-shaped gap in the back to accommodate my broader back. So this corset has an 8-inch bust spring, a 2-inch rib spring, and an 8-inch hip spring. So I would consider this corset to have a modern slim silhouette. It does nip in my waist about 1.5 inches to 2 inches because I'm not a very curvy person. But if you are a naturally curvy person and you have a naturally larger hip spring, you would want to go for a curvier style corset so that you don't get any uncomfortable compression around your hips. So let me show you the other details of this corset. So here's the overbust laid flat, and for the materials, it's 2 main layers. You can see the fashion fabric is this ivory satin, and the satin itself, it is interfaced, but it is a little bit thinner and less dense weave compared to the satin of the overbust that I had reviewed last week. And I think it is because this corset is significantly different in price compared to the last corset that I had reviewed. And then on the inside here, you can see that it has this sort of dusty rose kind of pinkish cotton twill. Here's a Corset-Story label, and you can see that the waist size, again, it's in UK dress sizes as opposed to waist size in inches. This is the Instant Shape line. And over here you can see the fabric content, the country of manufacture, and another tag here that shows laundering instructions. For the pattern, it has 6 panels on each side, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and this quilting was kind of cleverly done because it has not cording inside of it, but it's more of a quilt batting, and these seams were sewn on after the panels were already assembled. On the inside here, you can see that some of the boning channels were made from the seam allowances, while some of the boning channels are actually separate strips that were sewn down internally so that the bones themselves wouldn't interfere with this quilting. The quilting itself is very subtle. It's because they used batting on the inside as opposed to stringing cords all through here. So it is a little bit lower profile, and you can see that it was only done on the fashion layer. You don't see any of the seams on the inside here. The third aesthetic feature of this corset, apart from the quilting over the hip and the spoon busk here, are these flower trims over the top edge. These are made from ribbon, and Corset-Story also provided a couple of these roses extra in a little Ziploc bag. In case any of these fell off, we could easily replace them. There is no waist tape, so I would not wear this corset for daily wear or waist training or major waist reductions. When I looked on Corset-Story's website, they say that the Instant Shape line is for pretty gentle reductions, about 2 inches or so in the waist. Binding in this corset is made from matching strips of ivory or champagne satin, machine stitched on the outside and also on the inside here with a little lip, so I think it has been sewn in one pass. And there's also 6 garter tabs, 3 on each side here. And on the top here you can see that the roses were individually stitched onto the binding here, so they can be removed if you really don't like them. And at the top here you can see that there are also 2 narrow loops in case you want to attach bra straps or decorative shoulder straps. The Modesty panel in this corset is 7 inches wide, and it gives about 5 inches of usable space once you cross this midline here. It's unstiffened, finished in the same ivory satin and the pink lining here, and it is once again attached to the right side of the corset if you're wearing it on your body, and it is attached with this stitching that also anchors in the boning channel. So if you want to remove this Modesty panel, if you don't like Modesty panels, you would probably have to cut it out as opposed to removing that row of stitching. Otherwise, this bone is going to come out of the channel. And for those more accustomed to, I guess, the American brand corsets that often have the Modesty panel on the right side, just keep in mind that to keep this Modesty panel flat, you're going to have to pull it smooth with your other hand, using your left hand to pull it taut as opposed to your right hand. So just keep that in mind. And there is a small unstiffened Modesty placket on the front side of the busk. It's stitched on underneath the knob side of the busk here, so you can see it's a little flap here. And it's finished in a matching ivory satin. The busk in this corset is 13 inches long, and it has 6 loops and pins equidistantly spaced. It is similar to a spoon busk. So at the top here, it is a little bit under 1/2 inch wide, while at the bottom here, at the widest part, it is actually 1 1/4 inches wide. And although it is shaped like a spoon busk, it's not actually curved inward at the bottom. You could perhaps manipulate it with your hands to curve underneath, but it functions more like a wide busk at the bottom here because it does lie perfectly flat. So it's not like spoon shaped per se, but it does add a little bit of extra support at the bottom here. I would consider this more of an aesthetic feature as opposed to a functional feature when it comes to what spoon busks are supposed to do in terms of adding a lot of reinforcement, especially when you're moving around a lot and bending at the waistline. Because this corset doesn't give me a high reduction, I noticed that it doesn't bow on me in the front here, so I personally don't have a problem with this. But if you do have a protruding lower tummy, I don't know how much this is going to support you. This corset has a total of 14 bones, not including the front busk, 7 on each side. Along the seams, it's single boned, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you can see here, I kept the tag on specifically for this reason. This is the type of bone that's inside. So it's less than 1/4 inch wide. It's probably a little bit over 1/8 of an inch wide, not quite as heavy duty as the spiral bones in the corset I had reviewed last week. And I undid a little bit of the binding so that I could see the bones on the inside of the corset, and indeed the spiral steel bones matched the sample that was on the tag, and the spiral steel bones were a little bit wider, closer to 1/4 inch wide. This corset has a total of 24 bones, 12 on each side. They are size 0 with a medium flange around them, and they are equidistantly spaced. Most of them are finished in silver here, but interestingly, in the instant shape line, with this corset as well as the underbust corset I'll be reviewing next week, these middle 2 sets of grommets here where the bunny ears come through, they're a little bit darker. They're more of a pewter color, so I'm wondering if they did that deliberately for the person lacing up this corset, or if it is done to help their customers lace up this corset if they ever want to change the lacing. It's really subtle, something that most people wouldn't notice, but it's just something that I noticed. Moving the laces aside here, you can see that some of these grommets here around the waistline have shifted laterally a little bit because of the tension of the waistline here. But because of the very gentle waist reduction, this is not made for large waist reductions. The grommets aren't coming out yet like we had seen in the previous review. Here's the underside of the grommets, so you can see that they do have a washer in them. Most of these grommets have rolled really nicely. There's no splits in them, and the laces glide through them really nicely. There's just a little bit of that pewter finish, and the laces themselves are about 3/8 of an inch wide, flat nylon shoelace style laces. This is finished in green. It matches the green leaves of the decorative flowers on the front of the corset. These are a little bit springy, but not annoyingly so. They're quite strong, very difficult to break. It's long enough and it glides through the grommets well, and it also holds the bow securely. For the instant shape stock by Corsets-UK, they decided not to size it the same way as traditional corset sizing, like 20 inches in the waist, 22, 24, etc. But rather they decided to size this by UK garment sizing. So if you were a UK size 10 in normal clothes, you might buy a size 10 in this corset as well. Unfortunately, I'm not incredibly familiar with the the sizing differences between the UK and the US, but they do have a size chart which you can look in the link below. So this corset is available in UK garment sizes 6 up to 24, and it is £59 sterling, which converts to about $75 in the US. And this concludes my review of the Instant Shape Ivory Overbust with pink flower trim and the hip quilt details. I hope you enjoyed it and you learned something new. If you have this corset, let me know your thoughts in a comment down below. And if you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave a comment down below. I'd be happy to get back to you. I'll see you guys next week for another review. Bye.